Video and photo backlogs can leave you overwhelmed, exhausted, and burnt out. We've been there, and our fears of outsourcing stopped us in the past. Can you find an editor as invested in your brand as you are? Will other photographers and filmmakers we network with look down on us for not editing everything on our own? That fear of outsourcing can be detrimental to your career. That's why we love our partnership with Weditor. Their attention to details with not only our work, but also their care for their clients through all steps of the outsourcing process lets us fully step back from editing and focus on what we love, knowing our work is receiving the attention it needs. More than just editing, Weditor is passionate about demystifying the outsourcing market. Follow Weditor on Instagram at we_r_Weditor for free educational tips, tools, and resources to guide you through the insanity of today's editing market. For an even deeper dive, follow Weditor's blog at weditor.com/outsourcing.
Welcome to the We Got You podcast, a network curated for wedding photographers and filmmakers that dives deep into the strategies and tactics to transitioning a side hustle in the wedding industry into a full-time, thriving career. We're your hosts, luxury wedding filmmaker Emma K. Films and luxury destination wedding photographer Hannah Brook Photography. It wasn't too long ago that we picked up our cameras for the first time, having absolutely no idea where it would lead us. Years later, we're traveling the globe for beautiful destination weddings, built our dream lifestyles, and run multi-six-figure careers. It didn't happen overnight and it wasn't easy, but it is attainable and so worth it. And we're ready to teach you our strategies. Covering a variety of topics from both our first-hand experiences and reputable guest speakers' insights crucial for business growth, we're exploring the art of marketing within your niche, discussing effective ways to attract and retain clients, leverage social media, and build a strong online presence, and so much more. We're not shying away from talking through the challenges of the wedding industry and offering realistic solutions to navigate them successfully. We emphasize the importance of networking, establishing meaningful relationships with clients, and continuously honing one's craft to stand out in a competitive market. This is the We Got You podcast. Hello, We Got You podcast. Happy Monday. Whether you're listening in the car, you're listening in the office, wherever you are listening from, I just want to say thank you so much for being here, for listening to another episode. And I'm so excited for this week's because we are kind of doing not necessarily a part 2, but a video edition of really what you're looking for, how you want to start the wedding day as a videographer. So if you're a photographer who's tuning in, I'm sure that you can learn so much from this episode as well. But I really, really encourage you to listen to last week's episode that Hannah did that was genuinely specifically addressing how she starts shooting the wedding day as a photographer. So we're honestly just kind of gonna get right in. This is definitely a really nitty gritty episode. And even before Hannah and I were talking about it, we were like, there's so much we can say. And really, truly, we could make this a 5-part episode talking about the entire wedding day. But we wanted to really go into what it looks like the morning of a wedding, how we're prepping, what we're looking for in communication with our second shooters, what types of gear we're bringing, and then how we're dressing when we arrive at the venue, what we're looking for in terms of drone footage, maybe landscape shots, details, just introducing yourself to the bride and groom. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. I want to get into the nitty gritty of this. And honestly, the first part of my day is just spent making sure that all of my camera gear is ready. I do a lot of this prep work the day before, just making sure that my batteries are all charged, my gear is loaded up. I bring with me, and you'll be able to see a link in the show notes that is going to link to all my gear below. So that way, if you want to purchase any of the gear that I'm using, you can see like my Amazon affiliate links. But I am using a Manfrotto big tripod bag. This is where I put my lights, my tripods, my zoom lens, my drone at times. There's so much that this Manfrotto tripod bag can take and handle, and it does great in the airport. It's a roller bag. I honestly highly, highly recommend it if you're looking for a big lighter tripod bag. And then I also bring with me my Pelican case, which that stores a lot of my camera bodies, a lot of my lens. It can also hold my drone as well, depending on where I want to put it. And then it'll hold any additional batteries, accessories, etc. And the last piece of gear that I have on the wedding day is my backpack. This is just a backpack from Amazon. And honestly, it was like $60. And I stand by this backpack so much. I am honestly obsessed with it. I love it. I use it all the time. I travel with those 3 pieces of gear. So the day before the wedding, obviously, I'm making sure that everything is organized. I make sure that all of my SD cards are cleared and ready to go to a wedding day. I make sure all my batteries are taken care of, and I just get everything organized. I use my radio headsets for wedding days, and I just kind of recently started using them, and they've been a huge help for me on the wedding day. And again, you can also see that linked in the show notes below on my gear page. But I always want to make sure the day before that those are working, because it's just important that I'm not showing up on the wedding day feeling scattered. Things aren't charged. SD cards aren't charged. I just want to make sure it's done ahead of time. It's always so funny, I think, before the wedding day, how much work we put in. It's like a whole additional day. I mean, it is all day. I'm checking batteries, running those types of things. But yeah, so obviously on the wedding day, I'm making sure that all of my gear is ready, it's charged, it's organized, and it's easily accessible, right? So when I get to the wedding venue and I am scouting locations, I'm shooting drone, landscape shots, I know exactly where everything is, and I'm not having to like dig through things to find them. It's all about working proactively so that when you show up on the wedding day, it's easy, right? You don't feel scattered. You don't feel like all of your gear is all over the place or things aren't charged. I also bring, and I think this is just like a random little note, I also always bring a hard drive with me, because if in the event that maybe my second shooter filmed on their SD cards by accident, or I don't know, for any event that I need footage transferred over literally that night when I'm at the wedding, I always have a little Seagate or SanDisk. I'm trying to remember which one it is. Samsung, actually. I think it's a Samsung one. 1 terabyte hard drive that is like easily accessible in my backpack. So that way, again, if at the end of the night we need to do any transfers, because my laptop's usually with me as well, we can do that. And I'm not concerned about mailing footage. It's just easy to do. I will arrive to the wedding day about 45 minutes in advance. I honestly used to show up like 20 minutes before I started shooting. And, because I'm thinking, well, when I'm on the clock, I'm on the clock. And then I realized that I was honestly doing myself a disservice, because I wasn't able to get all the drone shots that I needed to get. And I wasn't able to scout the venue or get landscape shots that I needed to maximize the quality of the film. So I'll show up 45 minutes, sometimes maybe even an hour if I haven't seen the venue and it's a really complex area where I need to just take some time to walk through it. Especially from a video perspective, this is a great time to be able to get those establishing shots and to get your drone shots. So I always have myself and my second show up super early. I can make sure that I'm giving them their camera body, or they're bringing their own. I'm making sure that they're getting their SD cards. I always give them audio recorders to have if they don't bring it with them, because I want to make sure that when we do split up, when the time comes to split up and they're going to film bride prep or they're going to film groom prep or whatever that looks like, they have everything they need in case there's moments that are needed for audio. And again, it's all about doing this beforehand, because once that wedding day starts and the timeline is running, especially as you get in the high-end market, you don't have time to feel scattered. You don't have time to feel like you need to kind of like reset and think about things. You have to go, 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 go. And that means being easily adaptable and having worked ahead of time on what you needed to get done. So that being said, when it comes to showing up early and when it comes to having my second show up early, what kind of gear am I expecting my second to bring? I am always expecting my second shooter to bring a camera body, to bring a lens. Usually I like it if they could bring some sort of like a 24-70 or a 28-75, one that's just like a nice versatile zoom lens that they can use throughout the day that they're most comfortable on. As much as I do love the crisp quality of primes, and don't hate me for this because I know this is a taboo topic. As much as I love primes, I love my 85. I love my 50. But when I'm moving throughout a wedding day, especially the more high-end weddings that are moving very fast paced, that have very high scale productions, I don't have time to pull up my 50 and then pull up my 85 and then pull up my 35 to get the exact same shot. I need to be quick. I need to be efficient. And with that, a zoom lens honestly is the best value for my time. And the footage still looks incredible. So I always have my second bring a zoom lens that they're really comfortable with. And then I also try to have them bring a zoom lens if they can. And that would be like a 70-200. I have my own 70-200s, but just to have an extra for a backup in case I wanted a cool creative angle for the ceremony or the toasts. So I'll have them bring camera body, a zoom lens, an ultra zoom lens, and then I will have them bring their gimbal. I take on second shooters that shoot with gimbal. And then usually I also have them, depending on the area, if it's a destination wedding, sometimes I'll have them bring light stands, which I think is super beneficial. It just helps me not having to travel with so much gear. If they're a quick drive away, it's a lot easier for them to bring their light stands and their lights. And also, reason being behind that is when I'm doing the wedding day, I typically, as the main shooter, am not the one who's setting up the tripods. I'm not the one who's setting up the light stands. So while I'll bring all my own tripods, I love being able to use lights and light stands for my second shooters because they're typically the ones that are going to be setting it up anyway, and I want them to be comfortable with it. As far as audio, I bring all of my own audio just to make sure that, again, like I've tested it, I'm comfortable with it, I'm confident in it. I just don't want anything going wrong on the wedding day and it being on my second, because at the end of the day, it's on me, regardless of what happens with my second. If one of their gear pieces fails or audio fails, it's on me at the end of the day, and there's nothing I can do about that. So, as I said, my second will bring camera, lens, obviously all the accessories. I have them bring their gimbal, and then I also have them bring their lights and their light stands, maybe an extra tripod. Again, that depends on the location, and no audio equipment. I don't have them bring a drone. I always supply my own. Obviously, if you're shooting internationally and your second shooter is international, if you are able to have them supply their drone, that's great too. But that's kind of like my layout for what I expect in my second shooter. And I also have a whole episode 2, episode 168. So episode 168 is what I value in a videographer, second shooter, and I go through all of those things. But I just kind of wanted to walk through what gear I am having them bring to the wedding day. So we both show up 45 minutes early. I'm making sure I get them everything that they need in terms of SD cards. We're getting everything set up. And then honestly, I love just being able to walk around the venue. I always bring my camera with me, but for the first walk around, I just like to get a sense of the space. I'm not instantly thinking, oh my gosh, I have to get this shot right now. I just want to bring my camera with me and walk around. Typically for this, ideally what I have done is if it's just myself and a second shooter, then what I'm doing is we're going to walk around the venue and we're both going to have our gimbals. And essentially we're going to take, once we walk through the venue and see the spaces where maybe the ceremony is going to be or the reception or the first look, then basically I'm like, okay, hey, let's split up. I want us to take 10 minutes right now and we're going to get as much landscape shots as necessary, right? So in that 10 minutes, I might put them on an 85 and I'm going to shoot on a 24-70 or vice versa, because I'm going to focus more on the wide medium shots. They're going to focus on the tight close-up details. I want to make sure that my second is not getting the exact same shots as I am, because that's pointless. I want to use whatever I can to get the most out of the time that we have. So even if it's just 10 to 15 minutes of being like, hey, okay, I'm going to have you on the 85. I'm going to be on the 24-70. Let's go throughout the venue and see everything that we can get, right? Just maybe the leaves, the trees, the ocean, the waves, anything that we can, again, from 2 different angles. And it's really just maximizing the time that we have, the shots that we're able to get. And even sometimes too, I'll pull out my 14-24 if I want to get like super wide shots. If maybe the venue is like feels a little crowded and I want just like a crazy cool wide, I love my 14-24 for those reasons. And then after we spend about 10 minutes doing that, if I've got some extra time, that's when I'll pull out the drone, right? In that circumstance where let's just say we show up 45 minutes to an hour early, we're going to spend realistically the first 15 minutes kind of just getting ready, doing SD cards, making sure that our gear is all set up. Like that's just the reality of it. The time goes by so quick. Then we'll probably spend the next 15 minutes walking around the venue, getting the venue shots that we need. And then we've got basically about another 15-30 minutes max there where it's like, okay, like what next, right? Before we go into the bridal suites. I really want to spend that time doing drone and time lapses. Again, I think it's easy to be like, oh yeah, we'll set up our gear in like 5 minutes, but it always ends up taking 15. It's easy to be like, oh, we'll walk through the venue in 5 minutes, and then easily it takes 15. You never know who you might run into if you go see the planner, go introduce yourself, those types of things. So once I get those pieces, I'm going to spend the next 15 to 30 minutes getting drone and time lapses. Again, it's about maximizing the time that I have. And so I will most likely send my second shooter out to go maybe set up a time lapse. In that initial venue walkthrough, when we were walking through, I'm looking to see, hey, are they still setting up the ceremony? Are they still setting up the reception? Do I have an extra camera angle that I can throw up to get a really epic time lapse of the planner's team working on the reception build right now? And think about those things ahead of time, because obviously with multiple cameras, you need them for the ceremony, but maybe you could have a time lapse going of the ceremony setup or of the reception, or maybe it's in the morning, or you do just like a beautiful outdoor naturistic type of time lapse. Like I've done so many of those where maybe it's not the build I'm focused on, but like it's just shooting the ocean waves, and it's a cool time lapse of the sun and the clouds moving through the sky. Those are epic too. So ideally I have it in my mind of what I want a time lapse of. That's when I'm then going to be like, hey, I'm going to have my second go set up a time lapse, and I kind of walk them through how to do that if they're not confident in it already. Or I do that and I have them fly the drone. And kind of my game plan with drone footage is really just capturing the venue, right? There's still lots of things going on with the reception build and the ceremony builds. They're not done when I'm showing up in the morning. Totally fine. That's why we're doing cool time lapses of them. But I really want to try to capture the venue, and maybe anywhere nearby. Maybe if we're nearby a city and I'm able to get kind of like the outskirts of it, obviously flying legally, that's most important. Do not fly where you're not authorized to fly. But when you're there, it's just a good time to be able to get some really good establishing drone shots. And like I said, if my second isn't knowledgeable about time lapses, I'm going to have them fly the drone and I'll set up the time lapses. But right there, just by showing up an hour early to the venue. And I know a lot of you are thinking in your head, like an hour early, that's all of a sudden went from an 8-hour to a 9-hour wedding day, or a 10-hour to 11-hour wedding day. But I want you to think in your mind, think about how much footage and how much I was able to do in that time. Show up with no stress. I didn't have to rush to the bridal suite. I didn't have to worry about any of those things. I'm solely just focused on like, hey, like, I'm going to introduce myself to the planner. I'm going to walk around the venue. I'm going to just scout out these locations, see what we're working with, see if there's anything I need to adjust by way early in advance than adjusting to it at like 5 p.m. at night when I don't have the time. And I'm able to get so much of my establishing shots of the venue, right? Obviously your ceremony build and your reception build isn't ready yet. That's fine. But you're getting the establishing shots of the venue. I'm able to get drone shots, and I'm able to get my camera set up and ready to go for any cool time lapses. That is a lot of footage that you're able to get in an hour. So that way, when I'm ready to go into the bridal suites, I'm just focused on the bride. I'm focused on the client. I'm focused on the detail shots. I'm focused on the people. I'm not scrambling to get everything else done. And I know for a lot of you, you're like, well, why would you show up an hour early? Like your client hired you for 8 hours. But at the end of the day, I'm going to show up early regardless, because it looks good on my reputation to show up early, to go meet the planner, to introduce myself, to show up. And 2, it's benefiting me for the film. I need that film. I would rather show up early, walk around, get my drone shots, not be stressed at all, handle any problems that I think need to be handled before the wedding day, than me feel like, okay, I have 10 hours to cram all this in. And like, I wanted to be more creative, but I didn't have time, and I'm being rushed from point A to point B to point C, and I just don't have the time. Like that stresses me out. So absolutely, I'd rather show up an hour early. Does your current client delivery system feel unexciting, limiting, and boring? Maybe you're still using good old Google Drive or Dropbox to deliver your clients' wedding films. If the answer to these is yes, it's time to level up your video delivery experience with VidFlow. VidFlow is a pay-per-use online platform that allows you to deliver fully branded websites for each of your clients. While being incredibly affordable, VidFlow is accessible on mobile, desktop, and smart TVs with included long-term hosting so that your clients can truly enjoy the entire experience when receiving their wedding films. When I first found VidFlow, it was such an easy switch that truly benefited my business substantially. With so many incredible features and options for customization and personalization, VidFlow continues to wow my clients time and time again. You can find VidFlow on Instagram or visit their website at vidflow.co. Use our code WGY20 for 20% off a yearly premium membership and level up your client experience today with VidFlow. So that's kind of like, that is my game plan before the wedding day. And then when we're walking in to start the bridal portraits, I'm always heading inside, going to go introduce myself to my clients And I'm really just focused on interacting with them, checking in, seeing if they need anything. I love walking up to the bride and being like, hey, it's so good to see you. You look so beautiful. Like, is there anything that you need today? Anything I can help you with? That is so important, just to give off this I'm not stressed out vibe. I don't want my client to feel stressed because I didn't get all the shots I needed to beforehand. I want to walk in, be relaxed, show them that I'm relaxed, because I want that to carry out to how they feel for the wedding day. And so I'm just introducing myself, making sure that I'm introducing my second as well. And then we'll introduce each other to both clients. And then at that point is when we're kind of splitting up, right? I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to send my second over to get the groom, and I'm going to stay with the bride. And at this point, I'm really focusing on the details first. This is a taboo topic. I have to give so much of this credit to Annie Graham. She was a photographer that we just recently had on our podcast. She was in episode 165, and that was Embracing a Non-Traditional Editing Style with Annie Graham. And she is someone who has constantly inspired me throughout my career. But I remember learning from her, actually, the importance of not shooting flat lays. And really kind of her mentality behind it was, flat lays are just flat lays. What story, what emotion are they evoking from you? When you just see all of these pieces laying together on the ground, what does that mean to you, right? It's not really, especially for video, it's not telling me the story. It's not evoking any type of emotion from me. But when I'm able to piece things together, I'm able to pull the shoes and maybe put them in the shadows, or I'm able to take the perfume and play with the light, or get some of the spray and really focus on those detail shots, which those I love getting to work with my 24-70, my 85, or my macro 90 millimeter lens. Any one of those is so fun to get to be creative with. I want to break it apart because I want to use light and composition to tell the story of the details rather than throwing everything into just one shot and just shooting it, right? It's just not, it doesn't do anything for me. It's not telling anything. It just looks like, oh yeah, you had to capture it, so there it is. And I will say, I don't film all of the details because of this, right? I'm picking special moments. Maybe there is a really cool shot of like a family heirloom piece that I want to include. Of course, I'm going to grab those things. And that's why getting what those mean to your clients beforehand is so important, or even asking them on the wedding day, hey, are any of these details your favorite? Do any of these details really mean anything to you? I would love to make sure that I, really capture them well on film. But typically I'm not capturing everything the photographer captures, not at all. You'll see maybe a shot of the shoes, you'll see a shot of maybe perfume, obviously the rings, maybe the vows, but so much of those as well, you guys, you should be capturing the details as they're happening. I don't want to film a bow tie lying on the ground. I don't want to film the shoes just laying on the ground, right? I want to see my couple. I want to see them putting on their shoes. I want to see them, adjusting their watch. I want to see them reading through their vow book the morning of their wedding, just scanning through things. That is what's evoking emotion from me. It's not just here's everything in one image or one shot, capture the details for me, right? I want to tell a story with it. And again, if you aren't able to get all of those pieces moving, then think, okay, how can I play with light? How can I play with the composition? For me, I love putting the shoes in shadows and playing with them that way. I love pulling out my macro lens for the ring shots to just get this really cool, clear, detailed look. It's just little things like that. And again, I take a little bit of time on it because I've got a lot of the establishing shots I want. And then aside from the detail shots, I'm really focusing on candid moments, right? I'm really focusing on small interactions. I'm always making sure that when I'm in a getting ready room, all the lights are off and we're really just focusing on the natural light. Now, a lot of the time, I don't just walk into the room and turn off all the artificial light, right? Because the makeup artist is probably still there. People are still using this light. I don't want it to just go dark. But I'm really thinking, okay, where is the window? Where is the natural light pouring in from? That's where I want to place the bride. This is where, maybe I want some girls laughing, giggling, really just being intentional. It's all about being intentional. You do not want to walk into this space and feel rushed and feel stressed and feel I need to do all these things. And then you're stressed and overwhelmed and you're just going back to what's comfortable and you're not getting the shots that you really needed to get. And when you can focus on some of those key things like, hey, just walking in a room, finding where the natural light is, thinking about the space. Is it dirty? Is there anything that you need to kind of clean up a little bit to then where you have a nice area to get shots? And then after that, I just let the people be people and I get to get their interactions and I get to just focus on more of this like candid type of feel. And I'm not so stressed about what the backdrop looks like. All that to say, we could go on and on and on about literally how to shoot an entire wedding day. But I really wanted to give you this look inside of what does my morning look like? What does it look like when I'm first showing up to the wedding? How early am I showing up? What do I want my second to bring? How are we navigating the first hour of filming? What does it look like stepping into the bridal room or my clients' rooms, trying to get detail shots or get interactions? Obviously, past getting interactions is when I'm really focusing on any touch-up shots of my clients, of them, putting them by a window, whether they're getting their dress on or their tuxedo on, really getting those really cool bridal portraits is what I love. And again, I'm moving through this not stressed because I'm not feeling rushed, and I think that's all about showing up early and getting the shots that you need then, and you just move step by step. Now, granted, I will say those radio headsets that are in the show notes below, I use those. Those are huge for me because I'm able to communicate with my second shooter all the time to just be making sure like, hey, how are we doing over there? As he's in the other bridal suite where I'm here, just kind of touching base, checking back in. If I ever want to kind of like go over settings, like, hey, can you let me know, like, what's your white balance at? Where are you shooting right now? Is there anything in the groom's room that, isn't going quite well? Like, can I kind of like mentally help you? Moments like that are priceless. I used to just communicate with my phone and it's hard. I don't want to pull out my phone on the wedding day. I also can't send audio messages back and forth. But when I have an earpiece in, it's so much easier. Granted, you have to be kind of careful with signals and how easy it is to hear people. That is always going to be like a hit or miss. But for the most part, it's genuinely saved me on so many wedding days. So again, as much as we could go on and on and on and on about this, I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what it looks like when I'm starting the wedding day. Again, if you're a photographer or a videographer, I encourage you to listen to last week's episode as well. I think you can learn so many of the same principles from photo and video. You can learn multiple perspectives, but it's these same principles. So I encourage you to listen to last week's episode, and hopefully in the future we'll get to kind of break through how we maybe film ceremonies or reception. We would love to know what you want to hear or know from us as a photo and a video team, and kind of how we navigate those kind of things. So anyways, thank you so much for listening to the We Got You podcast, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the We Got You podcast. We would absolutely love it if you could take an extra minute to leave us a review and let us know what you think. DM us a screenshot of it and we'll send you a coffee on us. If you want access to an exclusive community, rad freebies, giveaways, and wedding referrals, then join our Facebook group today. Also, if you aren't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure that you're following along on Instagram at WeGotYou_podcast to stay up to date. We'll see you next week on the We Got You podcast.